Therapists. What are some things people tend to think are normal but should really be checked out? Inability to regulate your own emotions. Also, negative self-talk. We talked ourselves way worse than any person could. A good rule of thumb as to whether a behavior or symptom should be checked out is the same we use to determine a diagnosable disorder if it causes impairment in one or more areas of life. The range of what is normal is huge, but if something keeps you from going to school or work, keeps you from maintaining basic hygiene, from maintaining your friendships, familial relationships, romantic relationships, it's causing impairment and you should seek help. Thinking that 5 hours of sleep per night is okay. Rapid weight gain or loss with no obvious medical cause. Relationship problems. Don't get me effing started. Research psychologists checking in. If your toddler is doing socially unusual behaviors such as not responding to name, not responding to a social smile, not pointing using gestures, using your hands arms as if they were a tool or extension of their body, engaging in repetitive behaviors, not responding to your use of gaze to direct their attention to distal objects, check with the pediatrician about getting assessed for autism spectrum disorder. I thought my daughter was deaf for a little while. I could stand behind her hollering her name and clapping my hands. She would be so hyper-focused on her blanket or Elmo she wouldn't react. Her speech was delayed. She is a toe walker. A litany of I let my family tell me I was crazy and I just wanted something to be wrong with her. That there was nothing going on and she would grow out of it. Then the fits started happening. She was hitting her head on the wall, the floor, the cabinets. She was hurling herself off furniture, screaming for hours. Her poor little head and face were covered in bruises. I was scared someone was going to call the law on me and have her taken. Someone in our parenting recommended contacting early intervention. My daughter has a sensory processing disorder. She's got a severe speech and learning delay. We are waiting to see a therapist that specializes in children so she can be evaluated. She's receiving a bunch of different therapies. I guess I typed all this out because you're so damn right. Don't ignore it. If you're a first-time parent it might be hard to notice or accept, but if you feel like something is off, if your gut is telling you something isn't right, look for assistance. The longer you wait the harder it is on your child and family. People normalize abusive behaviors by loved ones all the time. Being able to identify your own personal boundaries and then enforce them with others for your own well-being is, unfortunately, not innate. What are some non-obvious abusive behaviors that people most commonly perceived as more reasonable than they are? When your partner downplays your interests and only encourages you towards things they think you should be interested in. When your partner constantly interrupts your flow of conversation and does all the talking, which soon amounts to all the decision making. When your partner ignores or gives muted appreciation for the nice things you do but blows your mistakes and faults way out of proportion. When your partner draws on your deepest insecurities to win arguments. Therapist here. If you grew up with or currently are a part of a family where the whole family has to work to keep one or more members of the family in a good mood or appeased, that's not healthy. People are in charge of their own feelings. It is not your job to appease others so that they can emotionally regulate themselves. That was me growing up. Everyone had to make dad happy. Never knew if something was going to set him off. And when we pissed him off, she would go on for weeks. Outbursts. Throwing breakable items. Verbally degrading you. And sometimes it would get physical. That man threw me into a wall while he was face drunk. Would have gone all the way through but there happened to be pipes. And then he would use us like therapists telling us all the traumatizing she went through as a child and expecting that to explain his behavior. He'd be the first to admit that he needed therapy and medication but never effing did anything about it. Fortunately, he's no longer in my life. The attitudes of their parents. No, really, there are a lot of bad things that current parents do that are just seen as normal, when they are not, and they have long-lasting psychological effects from emotional damage. There have been a lot of my patients who have been pretty surprised when I've told them, hey, that's anxiety depression, when they just thought their behaviors were typical for everyone. Not being able to maintain friendships. Constantly being nervous about the safety of your child, to the point where you hate being alone with your child without your partner. Not being able to motivate yourself to do things, especially things you once enjoyed. Feeling excessively tired all the time. Not being able to calm down and just thinking about the same thoughts over and over and feeling worried. Other things we can help with: having a hard time trusting others, trying to recover a relationship from infidelity, not knowing why your kid is misbehaving so much and needing guidance, helping to improve communication within your relationships. If you experience these things, and more, therapists can help. Let us help you. I've had a really hard time talking to my therapist about stuff like my no motivation. I'm on an antidepressant bit and even upped it, but have still no motivation, and I'm still constantly tired. The fifth and first I also fall victim to. I have a hard time bringing this up to my therapist even. I'm like super quiet, maybe even autistic to a degree. What would you recommend I do, or like IDK any recommendations on how to more easily bring up these topics to a therapist? I feel like I'm terrible at it. It can be hard to bring these topics up. I totally get it. Some things you can try are writing these things down and bringing them to therapy. Making a mood journal for a week where you track how your moods are and how you're feeling with different activities, and using that as a conversation starter. Two tools we use to measure depression and anxiety are the PHQ-9 and the GAD-7. If you Google those, they're questionnaires that bring up some of these questions. You can fill those out and bring them into your therapist. You can bring a friend or family member to help advocate for you if that would be easier. You can write a letter reflecting on things you think you've made progress on in therapy and goals you have in moving forward, and use that to start a convo with your therapist. I hope one of these ideas resonates with you and helps. You deserve to feel supported around how you feel. Good luck. Psychotherapist here. Some things I see regularly that could have been caught earlier before they became a problem. Unhealthy coping mechanisms. For example, drinking to relax frequently or smoking a lot. Even something like promiscuity can be a red flag that a person is trying to avoid dealing with something stressful by distracting themselves. Self-harm, hitting yourself, banging your head on things, burning yourself on purpose, cutting yourself, etc. All of those things indicate that it's time to talk with a professional. Normal child-teen behaviors that are not actually normal, like running away or getting into fights, not communicating. When this happens, something is usually wrong. Not always, as some folks are quieter than others. But if a child-teen adult rarely speaks, or if they are silent in the presence of their parent or significant other, it's time to get them to see a professional alone to have their safety assessed. I've seen individuals who are literally shut down due to having been profoundly abused by the people they live with, and one of the main signs of that is silence. I've also seen people in perfectly good homes who cannot communicate due to extreme anxiety, and without professional help it's hard for them to overcome this. Mood swings. When a person's moods change from one extreme to another fairly often regularly, that is another concerning symptom. Sometimes they are considered eccentric or hormonal, but that sort of thing can be a sign of many problems, from bipolar disorder to post-traumatic stress disorder. Hi, I'm a kid who fell through the cracks. Got diagnosed with dyscalculia when I was a sophomore in high school. Throughout the years, my parents would tell counselors, psychologists, etc., that something wasn't right, and it was more than me being bad at math. It took a really badass teacher I had pushing and advocating for me to get an official diagnosis before anyone did anything. I understand fully that sometimes parents can be a pain in the A, but please, 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 if a kid is 15-16 years old and is stuck at a 5th grade math level, look into it. New nurse here. Did my rotation for mental health, and one patient in particular took quite an interest in me. He was very polite and very kind. He was chatting up a storm, answered everyone's questions and repeatedly asked my name. Later, we got to look at patients' files and I got his. He had a psychotic break and started hearing God. She told him her name was Courtney and that she had chosen him and he was to find her and marry her. Guess what my first name is? Courtney. They ended up moving me to another part of the hospital after that because he was quite interested. Can confirm, I am definitely not God. Way too much responsibility. It's a lot of things really. Even the most insane things can be normalized. In the extremes, I know a patient whose father would occasionally beat her up, sometimes while she was showering, because she hadn't done a house chore, and she considered that normal. Perfectionism. While a spectrum and everyone wants to do good work, an obsession with perfection is not something to be proud of and definitely not healthy. Healthy work ethic is doing your best, and then letting go, as in recognizing no matter how much effort you put in, the result is to some extent, out of your control, and that's okay. The intent and effort counts more than the end result. If you get obsessed with the end result only, you will hurt yourself because you never have full control over your end result, but you do have full control over the intensity and dedication you will put in, even if that doesn't translate well. It is a fact of life, sometimes things don't work out. So people who never, and I mean never, have anything less than flawless work all the time are paying for it somehow. Burnout or mental stress or overtime or medication, drugs to keep going or etc. It is pathological to want or to think you can realistically have such control that your work is flawless all the time. Most people are fed, or think they are, due to an overload of comparing themselves to others. This has always existed, but because of social media it follows us all day, every day. I'm not a psychologist, but this makes the most sense to me. I've never seen so many people feel so lost in my life before, and this only has happened in the last 5-6 years as social media sites like FB and Instagram blow up in popularity. Tell me I'm wrong, because I seriously think this is one of the biggest reasons. I had a conversation with a coworker one day. She asked me why I hadn't posted a big I love you message to my husband on his birthday on whatever social media. I was like, well, he doesn't actually use it, and I told him how much he means to me in person as we were home together in bed. I didn't need to post about how much I love him. Instead, I was showing him. It took a few examples and me explaining that sometimes those posts are for gratification for yourself. If I had posted this huge long "he's amazing" post, it wouldn't be so everyone would know it's his birthday. It would be so everyone could see I had a husband and we are so in love and look at how amazing he and my relationship is. She actually admitted she didn't wish her fiancé a happy birthday. She'd instead tag him in the post and call it a day. So also, same girl who said you married your husband for who he is. I didn't marry my husband for who he is. I married him for who he could be changed into. That was fun to try to unpack.